the Dynamics 365 for field service roadmap, and really what's new in the product. So with that, Kyle.
All right, thanks, Ben. So I'm Kyle Young. I'm program manager at Microsoft. I have the opportunity of being the product owner for our field service offering and our resource scheduling offering. So grateful to be here. Thanks for being here. How was the keynote? Yeah, good? All right, well, good. Well, thanks for coming on over right after the keynote. So we're excited about talking about what's new in roadmap.
And I'm Ben Vollmer. I run our field service strategy from a field execution perspective. So Kyle owns the product. I own making sure that we can actually get it to customers in a way that actually makes some sort of sense. With that, we're going to set some expectations. I'm a child of we got cable TV in about 92 in my house. We live in the country. There's a show on TV called In Living Color. You remember the show In Living Color? They had a thing called lowered expectations, where I expect this, and they kept lowering your expectations. So I just want to kind of set expectations today. I'm going to lower your expectations slightly. There are no demos in today's session. Okay? Today's session is really about the why we are doing what we're doing, both from an industry perspective as well as from a product perspective. So the whole goal of this next hour is the why. The how we're doing it and the what we're doing, the individual pieces of this, are going to be covered. And I think there's 13 breakout sessions for field service. There are sessions covering these in detail on the how, but this is really going to be about the why. Does that make sense? Okay, so no product demos. This is not a deep dive in any measure on the product. This is about the why we're doing what we're doing in the product. Kyle and I are going to talk about this differently from two different sides. I want to start off by saying, so if you're a customer, thank you for trusting Microsoft for field service. If you're a partner, I want to say thank you for the incredible growth you've done in training your teams and getting things up and running. We acquired Field One, was it 4 years ago?
It'll be 4 years ago.
4 years ago in September, we acquired them. So that far left-hand side there, by the way, is the initial purchase of Field One. The far right-hand side of the first chart is what our current customer acquisition streak looks like. I'm not allowed to give exact growth numbers, but I will tell you that you can tell from the chart, the growth has been incredible. Now, on the right-hand side, so selling product and getting licenses consumed is awesome. I like it. I get paid on it. And customers like it because they buy it. Consultants like it because they get to deploy stuff on it. But I think what's more important is the other chart that Kyle can talk about.
Yeah, one of the things that we think about, we're very excited, obviously, as we see new wins coming from the channel and we see new customers that are going to trust us for field service and resource scheduling. The thing that we end up being really obsessed with and really focusing on is what we look at as actual usage, because that means that we have successful implementation, or at least we have tangible implementation. And so as we see those usage numbers driving, and we watch this very closely, we'll look at who's coming on and which customers are, have spiked up this month, and who's, where are we seeing the growth and so forth. And a lot of times you'll see us reaching out and finding out, like, okay, what's going on and how's that going, and what's new and what are the learnings and so forth. So just a big thank you from the customer perspective and partners perspective, those of you who are driving those implementations to success and actually getting real users up and running on the product. Just a big thanks for that. That's an important area for us.
And I would say the growth rate on both those charts, though, is over 100%. So you guys think about those growth rates year over year for us, it's over 100%. So thank you for that. We're going to talk a little bit now about industry trends. And the industry trends, by the way, some of you who are doing field services industry might be a little bit old hat, and I'll apologize for that, but it's really around, it shapes our product direction. It shapes why we're building the product the way we're building the product. So we're going to talk about the industry first, and then what we're seeing here, and how it feeds into what Kyle's team is building. So first of all, we're seeing business models shift. If you look at field service 20 years ago, 15 years ago, thereabouts, they were all cost center based customers. So it was, I'm selling a product or a subscription that I do the service attached to it. An example of that would be a telco company or utility. I'm selling you water water is what I sell you, and I want to drive down the cost of providing service as much as humanly possible. And so it's really around maximizing efficiency. And just so you know, globally today, number of technicians in the marketplace, there's about 50% of the marketplace is cost center customers. So you look at the number of technicians globally, about half of them are cost center. Profit center, it's how do I differentiate my offering from somebody else's offering? It's all about offer differentiation. It's all about how does my field service offering that I offer to my customers differ from somebody else's? And for those of you who are partners in the room here, I'm going to ask you a question. Does anybody who's a partner have a proprietary deployment methodology? Come on, yeah, come on. Don't. Okay. If anybody who's worked with multiple partners over your lifetime, doesn't the proprietary methodology look kind of like the last proprietary methodology you used, your last partner? Okay, which you use kind of like the proprietary methodology before that. But you use it as differentiation, don't you? Show your customer why using that methodology makes a difference. And so that's really a profit center. So how do I differentiate myself from my competitors to drive strong margins? And just kind of give you about 35% of the companies last year fit in the profit center bucket. So, and then servitization, no, I didn't make that word up. No, you won't find the dictionary. Yes, it's an industry term, okay? It's really around how do I move to outcome driven? How do I charge for a service and charge on the outcome I get, not on the product or service I sell? Now, it's about 15% of the marketplace. Now you go, okay, Ben, those are great numbers, but here's why it's important. The cost center to profit center to servitization, about 15% year over year are moving out of cost center into profit center, into servitization center. And what that's driving really is why you see a lot of older ERP-based field service solutions being discarded. Is because they're moving out of a cost center model where the CFO owns it into a profit center or into a servitization center model. Okay, so this, I'm going to start off, this was kind of the initial why field service makes sense all up from this industry trend. Outside of that, we're seeing a few things. The biggest one I see when I talk to customers, by the way, anyone want to guess what the biggest one customers have concern about in this slide? Talent. I'll pay you later for that one, Nancy. Talent is the number one concern for my customers. We have technicians who are retiring, technicians who are quitting, and they're taking most of the knowledge they have with them when they leave. I've been doing this since I've been 23 years old. I'm now 55 years old. I want to go not eat McDonald's drive-through every day, and I want to go get out of a truck. The people who are retiring faster than we can actually hire them. I've got some U.S. numbers for this. We didn't share. We can share today, but we have global numbers too. But the number of technicians who are quitting and changing jobs every week is north of 10 to 15,000 a week. So it's a huge problem globally. That's probably the number one thing with customers. The second one is really improving utilization. Moving from 3 jobs a day to 3.5 jobs a day, moving 3 jobs to 3.3 jobs a day. Moving our utilization just a little bit makes things a lot better. Proactive service is huge. Servitization is also massive. So these are really kind of the industry trends we think about when we think about how does field service fit into the category of what the industry is looking at and thinking about and doing. And you're probably going to see some of this in Eamon and John's session too, but just kind of talk about mobility is also changing. So for a long time, before this slide, if I was asking about mobility, I'm looking here at the phones in the audience. You guys are all talking about, mobility equals phones. And I would say mobility doesn't always equal phones. Mobility can also be, so just you guys, kind of a stat, our field service mobile client, about 25% of them are deployed on Surface devices or Windows tablets. So mobility is not always the phone. It could also be other things. Smart glasses. Smart contact lenses haven't quite figured out how I don't know what shut up my eye, but health monitors, safety monitors. We're also seeing a lot of customers deploy drones, which is actually a form of mobility. And then, of course, things like language translators, et cetera. So mobility, when we think about mobility from a strategy perspective, is not just in the context of this. This is not all we think about when we think about mobility. We have lots of other things we think about when we're building for mobility. The other thing that we're seeing here, and Gartner, by the way, you guys, anybody who knows me, I have a sick sense of humor. So I'm going to tell you, I'm warning up front. There's an artist by the name of Robin Thicke. Have you heard of Robin Thicke? Sings a song called Blurred Lines. Okay, so Gartner has a slide actually called Blurred Lines, which every time I think about it, I bust into Robin Thicke. But think about this. For the longest time, enterprise asset management was its own category, right? Where was EAM purview in? It was in a factory, it was building things in a factory. And then you have CMMS, which is kind of the child of EAM. And then you have asset-based performance. Then you had field service, you had transportation logistics, mobile workforce management. And those things were all kind of separate individual pockets of solutions. What we're seeing today is we're seeing a lot of blending of solutions. And you're going to see from us when Kyle talks about roadmap and where we're going, the blending of these solutions. So don't think about Dynamics 365 for field service as strictly in the field service bucket. Because it used to be, for example, a truck would deliver, I'm going to pick a TV, a truck would deliver this television to a customer site, and then a technician would come and wire the TV up and leave. Now they put the truck and the technician together, and the truck and technician deliver it. So you kind of move from just pure transportation logistics to transport logistics plus skilled labor plus requirement resource gathering. And so you're really seeing a blending of things. EAM is another thing, where we're seeing customers who have traditionally had EAM solutions because they think that's what they need because they have these factories that produce things, where they have EAM that's distributed, where you have people who are going from factory to factory to factory, fixing things inside the EAM solution. So really what we're thinking about, so when we think about Dynamics 365 for field service, it's not just about field service, it's about Azure, it's about unified operations or F&O, it's about Microsoft Teams. You know, Teams has a product in it that does mobile workforce management. Now we can debate how well over a beer some other time, but it does it. Product Insights does some APM-based functionality in Dynamics 365 field service. So really when we think about our solution all up, we only focus on just field service, we're missing a lot of other scenarios we're seeing. And the surprise for me, coming as well, if you look at that initial slide, about a third of our customers have self-identified what their really needs are as EAM. But it's really not EAM, it's really field service, but EAM was their initial need. About a third of our customers were facilities management companies. So tomorrow, I think, during our presentation, we're going to talk about a facilities management company, show their kind of full life cycle. And then you have the other third are kind of field service. So when we think about our field service customers as a whole, they're really kind of blurring the lines between all these different areas to make a solution meet their needs. From a strategy perspective, again, we really think that the first-time fix rate is really what, if we fix the first-time fix rate for problems, for customers, that really drives everything else. And so technician productivity, the ability to have technicians have data on their device, be able to get data on their device, be able to receive things, is really critical. Because the industry average today is 74%. Now, if you're a partner, I'm going to tell you, the first thing you ask your customer is, what's your first-time fix rate? The second question you should ask them is, how do you derive your first-time fix rate? Okay? And the reason for that is I was actually in Australia and I met with a customer down there. I'm like, oh, what's your first-time fix rate? They went, 98%. Whoa. Man, like everybody I've talked to hates you guys. How is that possible? And I'm like, how do you derive your first-time fix rate? They go, well, if our technician goes out to the job site and they close the ticket, successful or not successful, we consider that a first-time fix rate. Okay, that works. What's interesting about this is, again, some facts here. 75%, I round up, by the way, because it's easier than saying 74% all the time. 75% of the tickets are fixed in the first time. Those other 25% average 1.5 visits additional to fix it. So when you think about it, that 25% of your work orders actually generates half of your work. Does that make sense? So 25% of your work orders you don't do generates half your actual work orders you're doing. And so so when I think about what our strategy is, what we look at, we hone in on, it's really how do we help fix that first-time fix rate? How do we get your first-time fix rate up high enough to make you more profitable? Because moving from 74% to 80%, and I'm going to use US dollars here because I'm a dumb American. Nobody from Europe laughed? Oh, come on, it's okay.
Tough crowd.
Or Australia, you can pick, I don't care. Moving from 74% to 80% is a $2 million a year fix. So moving at 6%, which is less than a 10% move, is a $2 million fix. And if you want to have a conversation about those numbers, I'm happy to share them with you, but it's there. So from my perspective, our effective strategy starts with fixing the first-time fix rate, which means our mobile experience, our technician experience, delivering value to the technician around their timing, around enough information on their mobile device? Can they get access to the work order and the product information and the slick sheets and the information sheets, et cetera? And do they have the expertise? Do they have the skill required to fix this piece of equipment? So, how am I doing on time here? Okay. Oh, almost, okay.
Yeah, all right.
I'm just making sure I can ramble on for hours, Kyle, you know that.
That we know.
Okay. So when we look at field service, you kind of break field service up into, the nice thing about field service for me is you break this up into 5 chunks. And I don't care what kind of customer you are, what kind of work you do, where you're at. These are kind of the 5 kind of main chunks of work. Now some customers have little kind of sub-chunks, but this is the main chunks here. And it's really around managing demand, planning work, enabling technicians, engaging customers, and be able to analyze and integrate. I think an interesting thing, by the way, in the analyze and integrate, we'll get into this here, is we surveyed our partners earlier this year, and 95+% of our partners in phase 1 did ERP integration for field service, which is, we talked other workloads, and it's way higher than anybody else has looking at for that. So this is kind of, the whole thing is we want to look through these chunks to make sure we're doing things that meet the customer's demand. Now, Kyle's going to get into product trends here in a second. Before Kyle takes off and talks about field service, I'm going to take a left turn just for a second. I promise it'll be a fun scenic detour, but it'll be a scenic detour. So we think about 4 things when building a product, which is technician productivity. Because what is technician productivity going to drive? First time fix rate. So how to make that technician more effective. Scheduling more resources. No, this is not a scaling issue. I'm not talking about scaling 10,000 versus 15,000 technicians. I'm talking about how do we schedule more resource types? Because we think about sometimes as one technician, one job work order, but some customers might think of dynamic teams, pooling, crews, et cetera. So how do we schedule more different types of resources, equipment, et cetera? IoT, I think, is a huge, I mean, it's a given, so we won't even talk about that a whole lot, but Internet of Things, there's a whole bunch of sessions on that today. IoT is a big thing. The last one, though, I think is an interesting one, which is field service is customer service. And I would say, conversely, customer service introduces field service. 65% of all calls that come into a call center result in a technician being dispatched, is the industry stat. So you're going to have customer service and field service having joint and shared pieces on purpose to make that experience the best for the customers. Now, the scenic detour I'm talking about here, and the what's new, is really around universal resource scheduling. I think one of the most underappreciated, so Kyle's going to talk about field service and go deep into field service. I think one of the most underappreciated areas of the product today is universal resource scheduling. Marcio and James have a session this afternoon all about this in detail. I would say go ahead and attend that. But really what we're doing is we have the ability to schedule anything, not just work orders. And we've actually, so some of the enhancements you see that initially come in, you guys have all read they released the release notes this morning, right? You guys all read them already? Of course, you memorize, yeah, me too. Memorized them all, got them all down. Sometimes though, universal resource scheduling makes its way into field service. So what you really have to work from a consulting perspective or a customer perspective is figure out what is a URS thing versus what's URS that's working its way into field service. So some things we actually added into URS, which now made their way into field service, have been multi-requirement scheduling. I have a task with 2 different people on the same task. I would say we've also probably entered the kind of phase 1 of capacity planning for us, so capacity scheduling. I have a CSR, the phone rings. That CSR should not be scheduling Dave. They should be scheduling a resource of this pool to make sure that we have capacity to meet that. Resource pools, same basic philosophy there, focusing capacity. Crews, the product shipped with the ability to have static crews. So I'm going to ship this truck with these 2 people and these 2 people in the back seat do the same job every day. We've shipped with that product since the product's beginning. But dynamic crews. I have a crew that goes out that I want to add 2 people to the same job, but then the next job they go their separate ways. Facility scheduling, this is a huge thing for our government customers, and our healthcare customers have asked for this. I want to be able to schedule, I was talking to somebody the other day, I want to schedule 15-minute appointments for doctors in rooms, bang, 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 the whole way down the thing. And then last but not least, fulfillment preferences. What just got released, which you may or may not have been aware of, but you probably should have been, is quick scheduling. So it's basically the scheduling assistant minus, it's a wrapper around scheduling assistant. Makes it very, very fast. You click a button and it just pops out and does the scheduling assistant for you. Travel time updates. You insert a booking between two other bookings. It says, hey, wait, my travel time has changed because my route has changed because my things have changed, so I should update that. And then last but not least, a scheduling API. Self-service scheduling is, I personally see it, and Kyle can differ here, I see a lot of B2C customers, business to consumer customers. Self-scheduling is a big, big requirement. So we now have an API that allows you to be able to schedule things via a single resource requirement.
All right. Okay, thanks, Ben. So I'm really excited about the resource scheduling functionality. Our guys have done a really good job of continuing to drive innovation around resources, really focusing on what we're hearing from customers and being able to meet their requirements. And as Ben points out, some of that capability, it makes sense to use standalone. There are quite a few scenarios in which there are just simply scheduling resources and you don't need the full capability of the field service application. In other cases, the scheduling pieces just simply accrue to field service and become just help to make the field service offering just that much richer. So we've got this graphic here that kind of puts in place in one taxonomy a bunch of the new features that we've released over the last the fall release and things that we're starting to release in the spring release and so forth. Now we call those, it's a release plan, and we have basically waves 1 and waves 2. So in the future we'll talk about wave 1 and wave 2 of the release plan, but back when we originally planned these were part of the October release and April release of the release basically the release notes that we published. So anyway, and so this taxonomy puts it in just a few areas. And so think of the little HoloLens there as technician success, and then the next column, it's scheduling functionality, and then IoT, and then just kind of core field service functionality. So one way of looking at that is in this taxonomy. And so you can go down the list and take a look at what we've done for technician productivity or mobile space, what we've done for scheduling, what we've done for IoT, and then just all up service delivery. And so that's one taxonomy. So if this is helpful, you can kind of go back, refer to this slide as kind of a way of looking at it. What we'll do is we'll drill down with this in context. And Ben did a good job of putting together like a business process flow view of the features that we have that we've released over the last period. And so we can, again, this is like another way of looking at that same set of features in terms of kind of thinking about that upfront view versus of creating work orders, scheduling work orders, and then closing work orders. So anyway, let's just drill down using that view or that taxonomy. So when we talk about creating work orders, and in this context, I always like to think about kind of these three pieces of the puzzle. So one piece is demand. And so as you're creating work orders, you're also creating what we call requirements, and that's basically the demand coming in. And so from a variety of sources, you can have demand that's generated. But it tells you what work needs to be done, where it needs to be done, what skills need to be done, what work type we're doing, and so forth. So that's kind of on the demand column. And then when we get to scheduling, we'll talk about the set of resources that are available that represent capacity. And so capacity is the resources, what their work hours are, what their skills are, what their locations are, and so forth. And then scheduling is the process of matching that demand with capacity, and in our terms, you come up with a booking. Or if you want to drill down even more, you come up with a bookable resource booking for those who are deeper in the schema. And that booking represents the intersection of demand and capacity in a given time slot. So that's kind of the way to think about that. So it's really important to capture demand correctly. So when we think about demand, we look at some new functionality. For example, having service level notion that you can define ahead of time associated with this customer, for example, the fact that you have certain time requirements that you need to meet for that customer. And then when that customer, you're creating demand for that scenario, then you can set the time window on that demand. That's already a function. So you can already set the time windows. Now you have some upfront logic that says, okay, based on prior agreement that I have with the customer. And that's how we think about service level agreement. And so then if you set the time windows correctly, then all the rest of it just works because the scheduling system already understands what to do with time windows and so forth. And then afterwards, it tracks the progress through the work that the technician does and so forth, and then you can actually go and measure that, and you can say, okay, how did we do against SLA for this customer or some given context. And so that's some new functionality that's available. Not totally unrelated, but another area is entitlement. And this is, again, this has to do with the upfront agreement that we have with our customer. That based on the contract that we have, it entitles the customer to certain services, parts, or pricing that as just part of the agreement. And so now we have a way of expressing that. And you can express that and associate it to the customer, but it's actually fairly commonly associated to a customer's asset, or the thing that we end up servicing that entitlement applies. Now we have a way of first initially defining that, and then being able to apply that. And so as you're performing work and identify the fact, okay, I need to do X for a given customer or for a given asset, what's my entitlement? And then as you complete the work, confirming that that was actually the correct entitlement. Because sometimes the technician, you don't actually know like that, that it was, whether it's something that just failed, or you go out and you see that the thing's been dropped. And so that the technician can help determine whether or not being dropped is part of the entitlement, or if it was just a normal failure, then it's part of the entitlement. And then afterwards, truing that up. And then when you actually associate your services and products to the work order to finalize the work order, then it uses the entitlement logic to say, okay, here's actually how I apply the entitlement. Go ahead.
So I'm a little more simple than Kyle is. I wouldn't refer to these as entitlements. These to me I use this in the context of warranties primarily. So under a 2-year warranty, I'm entitled to free parts and free labor, or free parts and labor half-offs. So entitlements is what the visual feature is called. The most common use cases of this is really around warranty.
That's right, yeah. Yeah. And the free stuff.
And the free stuff, yeah.
Let's not forget the free stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. And then if we think further down demand, one of the things that is quite common is to express demand or requirements for multiple resources. So Ben gave some examples, but it's very common to say, okay, for doing this type of work, I need a resource with this skill set and a resource with this skill set. And being able to express those requirements as part of that work order, then the scheduling system, again, can know what to do with it, because now I've expressed multiple requirements instead of a single requirement. And then we've made some investment around, and we've got some new features around our IoT offering. So we continue to partner with our IoT Central team. That's a SaaS offering. So mere mortals, even program managers, can actually do IoT things, setting up IoT devices and monitoring those devices and setting up rules and so forth. And then having, depending on the situation, the scenario, actually having the alerts that come from that go into the field service solution and then be able to take action based on that. And so if you haven't experimented with IoT Central, I highly encourage that because you can get started, you can do 5 devices for free. It's a great way to start on-ramping, to start doing prototypes, to start exploring how IoT can be used in a given scenario, and that ties up all really nicely to field service. And so we continue to make investments around that. We have a set of templates for flow that go from IoT Central to field service, and from field service back to IoT Central, for example, sending a command from field service that goes back to IoT Central. So we've done a bunch of work there that, if you haven't, I highly encourage you to take advantage of that. We've got tutorials online, and we take you step by step to go through that. So anyway, a good opportunity. So that's when we're talking about creating the work order or the demand side of things. Now, when we talk about scheduling, again, some investments. So the multi-resource scheduling is kind of the flip side of the multi-resource requirement. The ability to understand that I need to match these multiple resources. You can go in the schedule assistant, it knows what the requirements are, you'll be able to express that, it finds resources, a set of resources that match the set of requirements, and then be able to schedule those. Ben also talked about facilities, crews, and pools. Basically, those functionalities are all available to be used as part of field service. So when you have scenarios like that, like you have a facility where you're actually bringing work in instead of sending technicians out. Your technicians work in a fixed location, your customers in various locations, you schedule them to come in. We have customers who use that pattern, for example. Ben gave an example of crews, and then pools, of course, is a great capability because you can now express a set of resources with a common skill set or common sets of skills that represent a fixed amount of capacity and assign to those crews, or sorry, to those pools. And then you can actually just generically assign it to the pool, or if you need to, within that, you say, okay, I've got a bunch of work that's assigned to this pool. You can actually, inside that, at a next level of abstraction or next level of work, go, okay, now I want to assign that work order to specific resources that are in the pool. And so you can function at two levels. We've had optimization capability for some time now in the product, and we're starting to see more and more usage of that functionality. And so there's kind of you can start with one end of that, which is I set up a bunch of schedules, and I start to run that, and I use that as kind of my mechanism to do my primary scheduling. Another use of that is single resource optimization, where you can have more a simplistic set of objectives and constraints around how you want to do scheduling and actually say, okay, I can actually do this a resource at a time. So it's not uncommon for, once the day is planned, the day on paper at 7:50 before anybody starts work. But then once, people don't show up and they hit traffic and you have a job that runs along and you have all these things happening, there's a lot of exception handling that happens during the day, right? I'm kind of preaching to the choir on this one. And so being able to use single resource optimization to say, okay, let's clean up some of that. I've got a single resource. Let me just go re-optimize using the re-optimization logic. You can just do that a resource at a time right from the schedule board and take advantage of that. Then the other thing, as you think about and start to plan and use, being able to do a what if. Let's look at RSO, this set of requirements, this set of resources, and now I can tweak with the constraints and the objectives. And so what happens if I decide to put priority over work hours, or if I try to do more refined skill matching based on competency level, what will be the result of that? And so you can actually go do an RSO run, and you have a set of bookings that are not committed yet, and they're just there to visualize, and you can actually, even more importantly, look at the data behind those bookings, see what the results will be. I can go tweak an objective, run it again, get another set, take a look at what that set looks like, and I can even then go commit that. And now, a scheduler's probably not going to do that. Somebody's not going to probably do that every time they're going to run RSO, but it's a great mechanism to be able to learn what the optimizer's doing, and then be able to make sure that it's meeting your business objectives. So those are some of the work that we've done on the schedule side of things.
Makes for my favorite, by the way, acronym. RSO has SRO.
There you go. That's right. So when you thought we could not make it more confusing, we have exceeded expectations. Okay. So this last area is actually doing the work. It's not my favorite thing, nor Ben's.
No. We have people for that, right?
We kind of scatter when that happens to actually doing the work. But here are some key functionalities. And so the first area has to do with the mobility side of things. So we've enabled things like push notifications, just another mechanism that you have within the field service mobile app. How do I keep my technicians updated? Hey, I've got an interesting change that you need to be aware of, and so forth. And of course, this can all be highly automated. You can trigger notifications based on whatever business logic you want on the dynamic side. One of the things that's really key is being able to keep accurate status. So as technicians move throughout the day, in an ideal perfect world, when they finish a job, they mark it as complete. When they start traveling to the next job, they mark it as traveling. When they get there, they mark it in progress, and so forth. Now, we've heard on one or two occasions where technicians have missed out on that, and we've lost a few key data points, just in this very fractional, very small cases. But, where technicians, you don't get the data, right? And so now you're probably thinking about the case when they don't change any statuses all day long, and then, then the whole day is a bust, right? But those statuses are really important because those outline the amount of time, it drives the amount of time you spend on doing certain things, and that's valuable, it's important. It's important to measure that, like how do you know how we're doing on travel time if you don't know when the technician's traveling and so forth. So one of the things that we've enabled is the ability to do geofencing, and so everything that's a location, all of our customer locations and so forth, it's very easy to set up a geofence, and you can set the sensitivity on that, a radius geofence around these things, so that then with the mobile application running, with location running in the background or in the foreground, as the technician crosses those geo fences, those geo boundaries, then you can actually trigger events, and these events occur on the server side, and you can detect those events and say, okay, maybe I want to send a push notification to my technician to say, hey, are you traveling? A reminder to change your status to traveling, and you can make it easy for them. Or you can say, hey, do you want me to change the status to traveling? You could take that. Now, you can do them automatically as well. Most customers are kind of a little uncomfortable about doing it automatically, at least until you've done it for a while. But at a minimum, you could help send a reminder to technicians that, hey, you probably ought to change your status. And so then we'll be able to help solve that problem of missing statuses.
And you can turn them off and on per technician. So if you're working in a country, for example, like Germany, where you're not allowed to track the technician without their consent based on the Workers' Council, you can disable that.
There you go.
You can disable that geofencing and geotracking for your German employees while leaving it on for the rest of your employees in other areas.
Yep, no doubt. A lot of flexibility there. The other thing is being able to just embed 3D models with a customer asset and have those be visualized just in the field service mobile app. It's a 2D experience, but it's a great way of helping technicians for those things that are difficult conceptually to just have 3D capability that's available. And then the other one is remote assist. This was one of my favorite areas. This is a fantastic feature. We're continuing to partner with the Mixed Reality for Work team. And so they originally released remote assist on HoloLens. And it's a great feature. You've seen the videos and so forth. It's the ability to virtually put an expert on it right there next to your technician on site. Now, the thing that's exciting is that they now have in preview, starting on Android, the ability to do that on a 2D device, on your phone or your tablet. And so now you don't even have the HoloLens dependency because everybody's carrying the mobile device anyway. So now you have the ability to start to provide remote assist, start to do that on-ramp of that functionality just on the existing devices. And then a bunch of investment around IoT. So the ability to send IoT commands, and this can happen remotely, like a customer service technician who's working remotely, or it can happen with a technician on site. Being able to identify and correlate IoT alerts with work orders and the life cycle. That's some work we have a little bit of functionality now. That's going to become richer and richer, right? That capability. And then another important area is integrations, particularly with finance and operations. And so we're seeing increasingly customers who see the benefit of leveraging the broader Dynamics solution. And so there's a set of functionality that makes sense to leverage from finance and operations. So customer masters, matching a work order back to a sales order for the invoicing motion, matching up for procurement in F&O, matching up inventory and so forth. And so these are all areas that kind of come on the closing the work order side of things that are new and investments that we've made. Okay, so where are we going? What's coming next? And I get that question a lot. So it's time.
We're out of time.
Good opportunity to talk about that. Yes. Yeah. Well, come next time, and you'll see that. Okay. So before, I've kind of teased you a little bit. Before we get to roadmap, there's a very important thing that we need to talk about, which is getting our solution, our field service solution, onto a single version and the right version and keeping everybody current. Now, everybody's in the room has probably been through that now at the platform level. Is everybody aware of that? We all run a single platform, and we keep that platform current, right? Is everybody familiar with that? I think everybody in the planet now is current on the platform. So our solution, for a variety of historical reasons, has actually kind of lagged behind that capability, but we're going to catch that up now over the next few months. So here's what's happening. if you're familiar with version numbers, prior to the current version of field service is an 8X solution. And that's built on our new unified client or unified interface. That's the platform of investment going forward. That's where we're making all of our investment in field service. We still have a bunch of usage of customers who are on unified client versions. And to be fair, we've been working, taking feedback and working on upgrade and so forth. And so we've done some work over the last few months, and we've had some large customers that have moved and so forth. And now we have a pretty good base of customers who have moved and gone through that process. So we feel confident now that now is the right time to basically announce, and we did this in a blog of Zers. We'll do that in a thoughtful 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 manner, but we'll also be able to provide the fixes and updates and so forth needed just on this regular cadence as the solution gets auto-updated. Think of it kind of on a monthly basis. Think of a monthly auto-update. So anyway, if you can feel free to come back to this as we get to the question portion. So, but I wanted to make sure everybody was clear, and I've left the links in the slides, so when you pull the slide decks down, you'll actually have the links to the blogs that explain this in excruciating detail. So, okay, so on to what we really wanted to talk about was, okay, what are we going to do? What are we doing for the future? So these are the 4 areas that I like to think about and my team uses to look at how we make our investments. And so we look at these 4 areas. So first of all, just overall proactive service delivery. And Ben showed you the graphic with kind of the end-to-end functionality of field service. We look at that and identify how do we get areas that are more proactive, how do we get more responsive, what are things that we need to continue to invest in. For example, like SLA and entitlement, those are the types of things that we just build in to just strengthen the core service delivery functionality. And then we have technician success. And I think you can see the rationale for that, right? That's a really important area. These guys, the technicians, are the heroes of the scenario. They are the business. And so we will continue to invest in helping them succeed. Resource scheduling is a continued area of investment. We have lots to do there, both in terms of manual, semi-automated, automated, optimized. We will continue to invest across that spectrum. And then, for lack of a better term, we call it service insights and actions, but this is really IoT, or signals that are coming back from the thing that's being serviced, if you will. So when we look at where we're going to invest, these are the kind of the 4 areas. This is the taxonomy that I use with my team to decide where we're going to place our investments. So here's just a slide that gives a view of things that we have got going, that are in the pipeline, and for the future. And this is all in disappearing PowerPoint, and so you won't be able to capture it with your cameras or anything like that. No, just okay. So let's just talk about there's a little bit subtle. There's some blue stuff that's been delivered or is just be delivering now, and some of it we've talked about, like travel time updates, quick scheduling. One of the things that we did is we used to have IoT that was separate. The connected field service was separate from field service, and that realized that there was really no reason. We should, when you install field service, all the IoT functionality just needs to install, so we've done that. We have some IoT command work that we've done, and I mentioned remote assist for mobile devices and so forth. Then as we start to get into the green, there's things that we'll be doing as part of the ongoing April release, and we will be doing some work around optimization. So, for example, if you have excess capacity, you can actually set an objective so that the optimizer will move all the jobs up to the front. Because if you don't tell it, sometimes customers actually want, if they have excess capacity, they actually want to spread the work out. Let's say you're running a week at a time. They want to spread the work out so that it leaves holes for the unexpected. Other times you want to actually scrunch all that up and say, okay, move it all, front load it, and then leave the excess capacity on the back end. So you have a new objective to do that. Additional insights around optimization, so we'll be able to dig more deeply into that. Same thing with IoT, so you'll be able to see and have more of a view of what's happening on the IoT front, both on web and mobile. And then I already talked about we're now, some of the auto update capability is being rolled out now. We're actually testing some of the auto update functionality on 7X orgs in preparation for when we move all of our customers to auto update. So beyond that, and notice I didn't answer the question when. The when is the future. So future means not now, but in the future. Here are things that we're working on, some investments we're making. So one is mixed reality guides for field service. And so you've seen mixed reality guides very likely. Just like we've done with remote assist, we partner very closely with the mixed reality team. We will have a version of guides that lights up with field service. So think about being able to associate guided 3D content onto a customer asset. And then when the technician in a pre-job training scenario or in an on-the-job scenario has access to that total 3D overlay, right? So think about that just lighting up and being a part of field service. We're doing ongoing investment in business analytics. We need to provide more insights just embedded into the product, and we have a lot of investment happening there. We will talk about a lot of that exciting stuff going forward. One of the things that we're working on for IoT, so once you have signals coming in and you see the service patterns and history and so forth, we're working on being able to leverage machine learning to make suggestions. So let's say you see this pattern before, you see this kind of signal before. What have you done in the past? We can help customers by making that suggestion, or help end users by making that suggestion about what they ought to do in a given situation. Inspections. Anyone here interested in inspections? Okay, good. So we're going to leverage the work that's going on in the Forms Pro team. We've got work going on behind the scenes with them to go extend that offering to do the things that we need to do to make it light up and work for field service. So that's an ongoing area. How about time entries? Anyone care how their technicians spend their time? Okay, we're going to leverage functionality that was originally in the PSA, application. Good news is myself and some of my team actually worked on time entries in PSA. We're going to take some of that functionality. We're going to abstract that and then be able to use that in terms of field service. So be able to take time entries against a work order instead of just time entries against a project, sorry. Continuing with ERP integration. So we'll continue to deepen our integration with finance and operations, and we're also looking at what are other, what else can we do to ease integration? So when you have field service, you need to integrate to SAP. So what are how do we make that easier, and the things that we should do there? And then one of the things that we want to do with optimization is we have this great opportunity. In the past, optimization was really targeted for large organizations who could spend a lot of consulting dollars and so forth and pay for very expensive optimization functionality. Like Ben points out in the telco and utility spaces, where they originated in that whole cost center kind of model. But we aspire to be able to leverage optimization in much smaller organizations or for expending much less cost to be able to start to bring optimization to make that much more approachable and available. And so that's one of the areas we're making investments on, so that it's just going to be built in and more easily adoptable than kind of that add-on and the extra overhead that we have today in terms of taking advantage of optimization. So that's a view of what's coming in the fairly near future, things that have dates on it, and then there's the items that don't have dates on them yet. So with that, one encouragement that I wanted to give as well is to take advantage of the community engagement. We're ramping up that area. So for those who've been around for a while, you know that there were some things that have gotten kind of stale. For example, ideas. One of the things that I have tasked my team with is like, look, we owe it to you to listen and be responsive. And so if by some wild chance the thing that you care about wasn't on the list that we're focusing on the roadmap, just by chance, you have a means of making that visible. So put in ideas. It holds us accountable for it. And also from the community standpoint, it allows the community to pile on. And so if you're not the only one that's you may not be the only one seeing that requirement. So put it in ideas, see what the responses are, encourage your friends to vote it up. And if you have friends that care about the field service angle, have them voted up. Leverage forums, we're seeing, and by the way, those of you who participate in forums, thank you. It's super helpful to have the community answering questions. Also, keep an eye on the blogs. We push out a lot of new information on a regular basis on the blog. So anyway, just an encouragement to stay engaged on the community front. So with that, we would encourage you to evaluate the session, and Ben will show you how to fill that out if you have any questions. Yeah.
5's the whole way across, right?
Well, yeah, that's what we typically recommend. And so then with that, we will just save the rest of, we have a few minutes left for questions. So, anything? Yes, and I'll try to remember to repeat the question. Yeah, so the question is for RSO, do we have a story around being able to have custom constraints, basically, or extensible constraints? At this point, I don't really have any, it's something that we think about. I don't have anything new to say about that. We understand that there would be opportunities to do that. It's a challenging thing because, RSO it's a pretty complicated area. And so before we do that, we've got to make sure we do the right thing in terms of extensibility. So, yeah, and then you had a question? Okay. Uh-huh. Right. Okay. The question is around workforce management. So I guess I would ask you, how would you define what workforce management means? Okay. Okay. Okay, yeah. Ben, what do you hear?
So I think there's the workforce management question is a good one, and there's no one single answer that meets it. We've done work, for example, we've integrated with things like Kronos, which does kind of full workforce management, because there's things like union rules, for example, that I can only work 4 8-hour days if I'm in the union, whereas if I'm non-union, I can work 5 10-hour days. There are also things like Microsoft has a product internally called Shifts, which used to be called Staff Hub. And so I know there's work being done between the customer engagement team and the Shifts team to get things like working hours, for example, the ability to swap out work shifts here and there. So what I've seen with workforce management is there's no single answer because geographically things are different, and then by line of work things are different. So I've not seen one magic answer to the workforce management, but we have tools that allow us to meet the needs across a variety of different ways.
Okay.
So we had a question over here, by the way.
Yeah, let's go for it. What?
So the question was the new API.
Right.
What version is it in?
Okay.
And can it be used with the CDS portals?
Okay. Yeah. So good. The question.
Sorry, there's a short version of it there.
Yeah, exactly. You got the question right. Okay. Yeah. So the new API. So that is in the latest. Let's see. What UR are we on? It's in the latest UR. Okay, so you should see
8.6 or
6, I
yeah,
think. Yeah. So if you look at the blog on the latest release notes on it, you'll see that. And yes, the intention is that it can be able to be used with portals or with basically elsewhere in the UX or with external UX and so forth. So those are all scenarios that we've looked at as part of the API. So, yep, good question. Okay, you want to call on somebody, Ben?
Got the guy in the back there.
Just with the gap that you're seeing out there within the resource engineering and talent market, are you seeing any opportunities to build decreased talent on top of this?
So the question is, are we seeing an integration between D365 for talent and field service? So the answer is yes, because we're seeing a lot of pieces where they want to advertise places faster. What we're seeing more is not necessarily on the hiring side. So from my perspective, the hiring people is okay, but it's really how much training do you give them? How do you take 40 years of knowledge from a technician and distill it down? So we're seeing more around knowledge management solutions. We're seeing more around how do I provide guided help? How do I take that 40 years of knowledge sitting in a tech's head and put out in a way that a tech that just started 6 months ago can take advantage of some of it? The hiring part is a secondary part of that, and that's really more around hiring and upskilling is probably what we see most often around that from a Microsoft talent perspective.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go to the back, one more here.
Yeah. Question is remote assist on iOS. Yeah, the remote assist team is working on that. I don't think they've given us a date on that, but they totally get that we've given that fee. They totally get that they need to do iOS. So what was the say the question? Yeah. So the question is geolocation technician location and then the geofencing functionality. So the question, and what effect will that have on the battery function? So geolocation, it's just leveraging the device functionality to share the location. And so it's the same as like any app that's running in the background, if you will. So it certainly will have some effect, so you just have to gauge that, but it's all a function of the device and so forth. So we're not doing anything that you wouldn't do with just a normal background app. As far as the geofencing goes, once you're sending real location, that all of the geofencing logic runs on the back end. So the only implication there is just sending the real-time location. Once you do that, then you can go process on the back end.
From a battery perspective, the only difference is in the older versions, the 9.x version of the mobile client, the way Apple rules were, it was in the background for more than 15 minutes and went to sleep automatically, which saved a little bit, saved less than 0.5% of battery. The difference is now, even when the background for more than 15 minutes, we still are sending location data. So really the only difference there is just the location for that.
Yeah, keep it alive. Uh-huh. Yeah, the question is, are we going to be that much different than Glimpse? It's potentially, it's largely just a function of how much you're saying, how often you're saying location, that kind of thing. So I don't know if I have a good comparison. It'd be good to experiment with that.
And I would say that most of the time the technicians doing the location tracking, they're in their van or truck or something plugged in. So I've yet to see it be a major issue.
But let's know if you see issues with that. Yeah.
We're gonna pick on you. And then we'll go. So.
You want to repeat that?
So the question is, what percentage of customers are using field service alone versus field service with other solutions? And that's an excellent question. I'm very glad you asked it. No, So I would tell you that the answer is we see field service kind of standalone as an entry point. We see field service plus customer service, and then we see field service plus SFA, and then field service plus F&O. So we actually see so we have kind of 4 different scenarios. We have field service standalone. I have a field service problem, fix it. And then I see customers where I have a field service problem plus a contract renewal problem, which includes SFA and field service. I have a customer service problem and a field service problem. And the thing that really kind of changes there from the analysis I've done has been really where more the starting point is. So we have some, field customer service has been out for 18 years, so we have a lot more customers than that. So we have customers started customer service moving over to field service. We have customers starting field service moving over to customer service in smaller numbers because it's a newer solution.
Yeah, and it's probably true that, I don't know, I think probably most any time you're using field service, there is a customer service piece of that. And whether or not they're using Dynamics customer service is, I think, more the question, because you're going to, like almost all the cases you have, no pun intended, you'll have cases involved in that. And so sometimes it's just not using, for reasons we can't explain, they're not using Dynamics customer service, but they'll have some other solution.
Right, with two more here, so we'll go in the front first and the back second.
My question is almost the same, but regarding F&O. So what is the idea behind buying EAM solution integrated into F&O and having
Sure.
a solution regarding users? So we have two services
Yeah.
now in the house.
Yeah.
What is the idea behind it?
I can take that one. Yeah, so the question is, how does the Dynaway acquisition for finance and operations relate to field service? And so we actually work really closely with the finance and ops team on that. So here's how I like to explain that. If you're talking about inside a factory, a dedicated maintenance staff, and the maintenance motion is largely a function of when can you take this machine out of production and that kind of thing, that's not really a field service solution. That really is just kind of a core inside the factory EAM solution. If, however, you need to, if you have assets that you need to think about locations and you need to deploy resources and so forth, that's when it's more of a field service solution. So in those scenarios, what the EAM functionality will do is it will generate demand to field service. That demand gets filled with field service, and then you update back to EAM. And so, for example, one of the really good uses for the F&O EAM solution is going to be when you have organizations that have a bunch of assets, like take an oil and gas scenario, for example. You have a bunch of really complex assets, and you care about the life cycle of those assets, the cost, the profitability, and so forth. Model those assets inside of F&O in the EAM solution, but then when you have service, when you drive demand for the service for those, create that as work orders in field service, do the work in field service, and then simply send back the results of that service into EAM.
Still in the future, both, let's say applications, but they will share data and they will share.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So for sure, we expect that EAM and field service will work in blissful harmony. That they'll work together. Because they're not the same. There's still a bunch of core EAM functionality, particularly when you're in the manufacturing context. That'll just continue to be a function of finance and operations, which broadly runs logistics and manufacturing and so forth. And then when you have a true field service motion, then those things will be well integrated. So, yeah.
Right, so trying to have highly skilled technicians collaborate together and support one another.
Yeah.
Is there any work being done around use of teams or connecting up skill ratings so that if I'm in the field, I don't know who to call?
Right. Yeah. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So the question really is, how do you help make a more collaborative environment around it? So a couple things. One is, so Dynamics 365 customer engagement all up has a Teams integration, and we inherit the same Teams integration for field service that like Salesforce automation or customer service has. So we can leverage the exact same thing. We've done work for other customers where, for example, we've done things like surface the last technician working on that piece of equipment, not just that piece of equipment the technician's on, but that product so if I go out and fix this speaker box, right? I want to know who else has fixed the speaker box, who the last 3 technicians that work on a speaker box were. And so what we've actually found is by surfacing up data, by just being able to say to the technician, here are the last 3 people to work on a similar piece of equipment or the same piece of equipment that you can help, has been a huge productivity boon. So we've actually done things where we literally just surface up data that says the last 3 people to work on this piece of equipment are X, or the last person to touch this customer site was Y, so that you can at least pick up the phone and call them, and that helps drive adoption and collaboration between them. Some of our, like our oil and gas customers, they actually use Teams. They put up a separate Teams site for each piece of equipment. And then we actually tie the customer work order back to that equipment site. So when they go out there, they can see all the pictures, all the conversation, all the things flowing around that one asset in a nice format that allows them to talk and collaborate with people who've been on that site before, or maybe a foreman who might know that site from his or her past life.
All right.
And I think we're going to be at time, so let's take these last two.
Yeah, let's do, and then somebody's going to probably kick us out at some point. Yes.
So the situation that you're talking about regarding the oil and gas situation,
Uh-huh.
where the assets are located in off,
Right.
then they are pulled into field services and out of the work order.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, will I be able to add the equipment which are ready for use along with the skilled people as part of a work order? Meaning, can I add equipment and the people as part of a crew and then do a work order? Can I do that?
So the question is, if you have, let's tease this out, if you have a piece of equipment modeled in F&O, and they call them objects, and there's a corresponding customer asset in field service for it, let's just posit that. So your question is, if a work order originates from F&O, then what can you do with that? Oh. Okay. Sorry, I'm just saying you're using the customer asset entity to track those in field service,
so I
right?
think I think maybe check it. What you're talking about is equipment. So you have resources, which would include equipment. So if I need to have this piece of equipment with me to measure.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So yes,
Yeah.
you can assign resources that are
Yes.
resource type that are not humans.
Right, exactly.
To a work order.
To form a queue.
To form a crew to fix that piece of equipment. Yes.
Previously, I was not able to schedule an equipment with a human because of the limitations. So now we have multi-resource.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, you can have one resource requirement for a person and then another one for equipment. Yeah, and then you have the two resource requirements, and then you could schedule those together. Okay, last one.
So, from a technician perspective, like human resource management, people skills, allowing you to get into the employee self-service, right, role for entities and stuff like that, is there any plans in the roadmap to integrate field service skills or certifications to humans?
I'll take this one if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
go for it.
So the question really is, how do you field service resource skills? Where can you upgrade them at? So talent, up until very, very recently, did not have the skills available through CDS to get access to. So we've done work for other things, for example, like employee learning portals, where if I go through and I take how to fix a dishwasher 101 or jet engine manufacturing maintenance 101, that gives me level 1 skill certification. And so I've done work both to learning systems, so e-learning paths, where every time you finish the certification, it goes to your HR transcript. We grab those HR transcripts. We basically map those from that HR course to a skill, and then a proficiency on that skill into Dynamics 365 for field service. So yes, we've done it before. With both third-party learning paths as well as with talent.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.